Happy birthday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. So thank you all for coming. This is our weekly, our 6th week doing our Atlanta real estate Zoom update. And we're really excited today. We have several guests joining us. As always, I'm Kiadii Shank with Keller Williams Realty Atlanta Midtown. And then there's Robby King, who's my business partner and buyer's agent. We have Jonathan Minsk, who's our mortgage lender with Ameris Bank. And then today we have 2 special guests. We have Lauren Bingham with the Fryer Law Firm. She's a closing attorney. And then we have Chris Kiadii. Am I going to say that right, Chris?
Kiadii, like key to a door, and Audi, the automobile.
Kiadii, that's so easy. And he's with Atlanta Fresh Start, and he's going to talk about his services as well. So we're really happy to be here and to talk with you guys. So we're going to start off like we do every week with Robby and talk about what's gone on the last week as far as the stats in the market, in the in-town market in Atlanta.
Yeah, thanks, Kiadii. So, yeah, just a refresher, these are all stats from last Wednesday's call up until this morning. And basically, these are all market stats for inside the perimeter. So that's always the geographic area that we look at for this call, just because we want to be consistent and measure that market week by week and just see if there's any change and kind of follow along. So according to the FMLS, in the last week there were 100 closings on the dot, 100 closings with an average sales price of $436,645. Of those closings, the median days on the market was only 18. So just over 2 weeks, not bad at all. The median sales to list price ratio was 98.64%, which has kind of been consistent with the last several weeks. Another 74 contracts went pending in the system, and 330 new listings were pushed through the system for a grand total of 4,395 total active listings currently, or as of this morning. Also, another 9 listings were posted as coming soon. So those should be active relatively soon. Many of them have like small repairs or something that need to be done before they're being actively marketed, but those are coming soon. And as always, I always talk about this number, although it won't change. It only changes month to month. The current months of available inventory is 3.6. So we talk about that number a lot. That is essentially a unit of measurement that we look at to see whether or not it is a buyer's market or a seller's market. Last year it was 3.5. This year it's 3.6 around this time. So that number hasn't really changed, even though so much has changed in our worlds and so much is virtual and our practices have changed and our, the way we conduct business has changed. Essentially what we're looking at, I think, is maybe a fewer amount of closings, but the same home prices and same market conditions. I think that's what we've been seeing for the last 6 weeks anyway. And I know that this is the last week of the month also. So next week it'll be interesting to see what that number of closings is, because there tend to be kind of there tends to be a flurry of activity towards the end of the month with closings. Sometimes you have a whole bunch right at the end of the month. So those are our market stats for the week. Oh, Kiadii, I think you're muted.
I muted myself. I'm sorry. I want to say thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's great information. And like I say, it's really awesome. We're tracking it every week, for the past 6 weeks and going forward. And it's really nice to see the consistency. And despite some things being a little slower, or like we say, even slower coming to market. Once they do, if they're priced right in a good area, all the things that we normally measure by, they're still moving. They're not only moving, you know, quickly, but for a good price. And as Jonathan will talk about, for a great interest rate, you know, so that this is still such a great time to buy and sell. So we love seeing the consistency of that. So that will lead me to Jonathan to talk about this past week and rates and anything else that's come up. I know there was a news article you were going to reference, but real quick, Chris, before you talk, actually, Chris has a question real quick for Robby. Do you want to?
Yes. Hey, Robby, I had a quick question about those 9 listings that are coming soon. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
data that's locked into the MLS system that's only privy to real estate agents, or is that public data? And if it is public, does it show the listing agent's information?
So it is public. Essentially, so as a listing makes its way through the FMLS system, the earliest stage of marketing the property used to be active, right? It's a new listing, or it's active, it's actively being marketed. What was happening for a long time was that listing agents were sometimes putting a sign in a front yard saying coming soon, and or maybe posting like a couple of, you know, maybe a couple of photos on like a Zillow listing or something like that. And the market is so hot that sometimes that listing would go under contract before it ever even really went into the FMLS. So they kind of wanted to be a part of the process from beginning to end. And so they created a new category in FMLS where you can put your listing in, and you and any buyer can look at that listing. But maybe it's only got 2 or 3 or 4 photos or something, and the comments might be, here's this wonderful house that everybody wants to buy, coming soon. And so that way you can use the FMLS to market the property, even if it's not really undergoing like its big marketing campaign yet. Does that make sense?
Total. So it's just a matter of going to the MLS system, like me as a, you know, as a civilian going to the MLS system and just, you know, just filtering through the criteria as far as zip code and whatever, and search for coming soon listings, pretty much.
Completely, yes.
Okay.
And if you're a buyer and your agent is setting up your search and in your portal, oh, Emily's here. If you're working with an agent who has who's setting up your search in the portal, they can include all of those listings sent to you.
Okay.
And sometimes in the listings, you know, it'll say coming in 2 weeks or coming in a week or whatever. But, you know, it's basically just a way for the FMLS to have agents, you know, market the property, even if it's not quite ready for the big reveal. Because honestly, with inventory the way it's been for so long, some people are ready to buy that house in whatever neighborhood they've been looking at, you know, to the extent where they're like, I don't care if you haven't painted this or whatever, you know, like
Right.
I want to be first in line, because, you know, you have to beat out buyers all the time for property. And, you know, if you can be first in line, you know, it's helpful sometimes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. That was great explanation of coming soon. We did have somebody else join, so we'll just say hello to Emily.
Hi.
Hey there.
Emily, just so you know, we're all taking turns talking about some different things going on in the market and who we are. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat box, or you can wave us down. We'll get to you. And real quick, I think Michael has a question.
Well, I don't have a question, but my guest, Ali, and his wife are trying to join. So if you see me disappearing, I'm trying to navigate them in.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I will tell you that they should be able to type in the meeting number, and then you know how to do it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he didn't have the Zoom app loaded, so I said, that's step number 1. You got to load the app.
Okay, good.
So I'm listening, but I don't know what it looks like when I.
Oh no, we appreciate it. We're good.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, cool. So now we're going to move to Jonathan Minsk with Ameris Bank, and he's going to give us an update on what's going on with lending.
Thanks, Katie. So for people that are not in the real estate related industry, they ask me all the time, like, you know, are you slow? Is your business slow because of all this? And the answer is No, it's actually busier than it's been in a very, very long time. And I'm going to give you some statistics that are specific to Ameris Bank. So this is just from April 1st to today. New applications that we've received are $1.08 billion.
Oh my gosh.
That's huge. That's the biggest month we've ever had. For the month, just this month, we've locked $757 million. Loans that have actually been submitted to as actual loans are $977 million. Loans that have already been approved month to date are $945 million. And loans that have funded month to date is $761 million. I think we were on track to close about $950 million for the month of April. So that is our biggest month ever. So for people who think that that the industry has just been put on hold and that people are not buying and selling and refinancing, that's not the case. Also, there's an article that Kiadii had mentioned earlier in the meeting that's referencing about the Fed's going to keep interest rates at 0%, and there's a big misconception when people hear that. They just assume that means interest rates are 0%. That means that mortgage rates are 0%. I can go get a mortgage at 0%. That is not what that means at all. When they're referencing those rates, those are the short-term rates that are that affect your credit cards, rates that affect if you have a home equity line of credit, things that are based on basically installment type loans, not mortgages. Right now, for a 30-year fixed, I locked two today. We were at 3.125%. I've been doing this for 25 years now, and the lowest that I've seen on a 30-year fixed is 3%. So we're pretty much down at the historic levels. And people are taking advantage of that. Again, not just people that are looking to buy, but people that are looking to refinance. So, it's like I said, it's nothing has changed in terms of people, being apprehensive to take the plunge and buy. As a lender, we are, working remotely. Most people, 90 to 95% of our companies working remotely, and we're still managing to close $1 billion a month in business. So with technology, really nothing has changed. And I know that Lauren is going to talk a little bit more later about, the options that that people have when it comes to closing. You don't necessarily have to close face-to-face anymore. There are options available to you. So, I think all of our industries have sort of adapted to what's happening and figured a way to make it work. And so with that, I will, pass it on to whoever the next person is.
Thank you, Jonathan. I keep muting myself. That's great information. Remind me what you said today's rate was before you get that line.
I locked two people today at 3.125.
Okay, that is insane.
That's literally like the record, isn't it?
That makes me want to refinance again. I just refinanced in November, and
I know. And so the lowest that I've ever locked anybody in on a 30-year fixed rate is 3%. So we're right there.
But I say refinance because I bought a house about 1.5 years ago. But if I didn't own a house, or if I was thinking buying another house, that makes me want to jump out this window and go buy a house, because that's incredible. Like that's incredible. I see
free money.
Question. Yeah.
Free money.
It's basically.
Hey, Jonathan, what was the circumstances around securing that rate? I mean, was it just having a golden credit score coupled with anything, or what?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Pricing is considered to be risk-based, so there are adjustments to pricing. So a purchase transaction gets a little bit better interest rate than a refinance transaction, and somebody with a higher credit score gets a little bit better interest rate than somebody with maybe not as good a credit score. And if it's a primary residence versus a investment property, then there's a hit to the rate. So there's various adjustments. The ones that I'm referencing today that got 3.125 were purchase transactions, 8+ credit, and looking to put, one was 10% down, one was 20% down. So it really just is a matter of, you know, the credit score, being primary residents, and, you know, and that's it. So
I check all those boxes. Thank you.
Michael, but the other note to that, Michael, is you don't have to be as perfect, and there's still, the rates are amazing. I mean, that's the thing. Each individual has their own circumstances, but regardless, the rates are so low. It's a great time. So that's awesome. So thank you. So now we'll move to Lauren Bingham, since you kind of moved to her, and then we'll go to Chris last. And Lauren, like I say, is a closing attorney in Atlanta, so she'll talk about how things are going there, and also all the exciting changes they've made the last 6 weeks and how that works, so that if you had any, you know, concern about going to a closing or attending a closing, she can speak to that too. So, thank you, Lauren.
Okay, great. So for those that aren't in the real estate industry or maybe haven't had a closing of their own yet, I will say that Georgia is in the minority where both parties and your real estate agents and your loan officers might still attend your closing had you closed pre-pandemic. So as soon as the fear of community spread started, we began to separate the parties out, you know, obviously sanitizing closing rooms and whatnot, until the governor's order that went into place allowing for us to notarize via an online source. My firm is using Zoom Business. We're Zooming here right now. And essentially, that's just going to be your closing attorney and your loan documents and just talking one-on-one versus having the seller involved as well as the agents. We are including the agents in the closings if they want to pop on and speak to things or ask any questions. And I'll kind of just take you through the process. As far as a buyer or seller is concerned, your pre-closing process is going to look the same. And at Friar, what we're doing is the attorney assigned to the file is reaching out to the parties, seller, buyer, individually, and talking about other options, whether they want to close via power of attorney. Maybe there's someone in their family that is safer to come into the office. We've also seen a lot of popularity in what we're offering as a curbside closing. And I'm sure you've seen that on the news where the attorneys in their full suits are running circles around the card trying to get all the docs signed. It's very professional looking. Or when the lenders allow it, and I know Ameris that Jonathan's with does allow this, which is a Zoom closing. And the way we're handling that is we are couriering the documents to the person as long as they're physically located in the state of Georgia. And we are then on a Zoom call like this, talking about the documents, making sure that all of our numbers add up and are in agreement, and then walking them through the documents one by one, just as we would in person, sitting there at the closing table. And then they then package it up in the envelope while they're on screen with us and ship it back to us, where we notarize and witness it for those that are at the office on the call. We're seeing, just as well, Jonathan is talking about record high numbers, and Robby spoke to being similar to 2019, and that's what we're seeing over the last 6 weeks. We're having pretty much eerily similar to 2019 in numbers in closings. I will say that refinancing is more popular right now as far as what we're seeing in our individual offices, but we're still seeing a fair number of buyers and sellers, a lot of very motivated buyers and sellers that are ready to move right in and are telling us that they saw a 3D listing, they made an offer same day and closed 21 days later. So I think that that's phenomenal, and it shows, I guess, the stability of real estate, at least for right now. And we're doing whatever we can. Like I said, more individual. I think that pre-pandemic, we kind of had our process, and, you know, with the limit of state law, we couldn't do a lot to offer varying options. But now that we've been approved until May 13th to offer the Zoom closings, that's made a lot of people feel safer at home doing their closing and then just shipping the documents back to us. Now, May 13th, Governor Kemp's order for this type of closing does end. And at that time, what we plan to do, since curbside closings, it makes it difficult standing 6 feet away from the car to talk about personal details like property taxes and how to get your water turned on. What we're doing is we're going to be doing consultations for those that want them, Zoom with the closing attorney ahead of time, just to talk about all the little details that maybe you might miss hovering over a clipboard in the parking lot. And then the parties will come to the closing, but essentially that'll just be a signing ceremony where we get your ID and we see you sign the documents, but we're not doing a lot of conversational talking until it's deemed safer to all communally sit in a room and go over the documents again.
Cool. That's awesome. That's good to know, because that was a question I had. I wondered if, because a lot of this, so many people are now working from home when they never really thought they could. And I think a lot of companies will change some of this going forward, that if it makes more sense financially and commute wise, a lot of people might continue to do this despite not needing to for health purposes. So that's good to know that you're ahead of the game thinking about what the process is going to be like, and you're still going to be really safe. And I know even at times, sometimes you can have a buyer come at a different time than a seller and be in different rooms. Even right now, we've had that with people that you don't want to, normally a closing is a party, honestly. And we have a lot of people in the room. There's always an agent. And if you work with Jonathan, he tries to come to all the closings, and sometimes there's a family member. It's like the room is packed, but right now it's really just the attorney and the buyer, the attorney and the seller. Like, we all just kind of have to stand outside 6 feet away with popping champagne at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if people are coming into the building and after a conversation with the attorney, if it's deemed that it's safe for them to do so, we're still separating the parties just for fear that, additional people in the room. Honestly, it makes 6 feet of distance difficult to maintain, as well as I think that it for whatever reason, it frees up, especially the buyers, to ask their important questions and make sure that they get their homestead exemption filed and understand what things are handled and not handled with their mortgage company. And kind of get that personalized service. So it's been very interesting, having always done closings with both buyers, sellers, and agents in the room, and now being just one-on-one. The closings are simultaneously moving faster, and they seem to be better able to ask their, more comfortable asking their questions and getting those answered in a timely manner.
I have a question for you, Lauren.
Sure.
Just curious. So the way that we've always done business in the past is the way we've done business in the past. And now we're having to adapt to do business the way to make it work. Do you personally foresee that once we do get back to a state of normalcy, that we'll get to the closings the way that they were? Or do you think that there's going to be sort of a change in mindset, and that people may want to close, different ways? And I think that lenders, technology probably will change as well, and there will be other ways to close other than face-to-face. Do you think that this is going to really change the way that closings happen in the future down the road?
So I'm not sure. Not to get into the minutia of it, but there's a fair amount of lobbying to maintain Georgia as an attorney state and to not authorize any type of online notary. And I know that the governor has kindly been very protective of real estate attorneys' employment and their businesses,
right.
Which is great. And so there's kind of that juxtaposition there. I know for us as a firm, we a few years ago saw an uptick in interest in sellers and buyers closing separately anyway, and we don't charge for separate closings because of that, because it is a popular option and it does reduce conflict sometimes at the table. But we've talked about, as a firm, there's really, unless somebody just really wants to meet their seller and talk to them about a warranty or some work they had done on the property, we don't know if we will go back to just presuming that all the parties will close together. I don't know if we've made an official decision on that, but just kind of being more flexible and more personal and kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, well, this individual needs this product. And I think that we've seen a lot of value and a lot of success, and things have gone smoother when we do that ahead of time. So I definitely think we're more open to options as far as different things people suggest. And we've spent a lot of time researching options in the last 6 weeks as the laws have changed by the stroke of a pen on a weekly basis.
Right. And I wonder, you know, on the flip side of that, I wonder if lenders will sort of take the mindset too of like, okay, this video conferencing has worked. And so will that at some point be another option that's just available indefinitely? You know what I mean? You know, was one option that's always been available, but this whole Zoom thing is new to us and it's working, obviously. So maybe that's going to be something that lenders extend, you know, maybe not immediately after this is over, but just as a down the road kind of thing.
And what we are seeing, and I think Ameris has been one of the lenders that's talked about this, you've got the documents that need to be signed in front of an attorney, your closing disclosure, your note, your security deed, the really heavy legal stuff. And then you've got all the other documents that are required with every loan that you've pre-signed already as a borrower through your electronic portal, and you'll sign again at the closing, but there isn't a notary or witness requirement. And I know there's been a lot of discussion, should you just accept the electronic copies and get a wet ink signature, you know, and just primarily that closing being focused on the documents that pertain to the foreclosure and the property itself. So you may see some sort of split decision in that way, that, okay, these documents need to be reviewed by an attorney, but maybe we're going to accept a different version for 50 to 60% of the package.
Right. So smaller packages.
Right.
Well, everybody wants that. So. Well, good. That's awesome information. I know Michael seems to have a question. I'm going to get to that real quick. Yeah, your hand's up. Do you have a question? No?
Oh, I didn't know I hit a hand. Sorry.
Oh, I'm going to lower your hand. Okay, no questions?
Sorry.
Cool. Anybody else? No? Okay, cool. Well, then that was all great information. And you know, Jonathan and Lauren kind of go hand in hand, ironically, with what they do. Like, and also we're kind of going in the order of the process of buying and or selling a home. And so now we'll switch it up to something a little more interesting and different. We have Chris on here, just from Fresh Start, to talk about his business and how he can help both buyers and sellers. But I know he may talk first to Baby about the program he has specifically for sellers that I think is a huge asset now and always, but especially right now when we're trying to make things really easy and smooth for the process of listing your home and then of course buying your home. So take it away, Chris.
All right. So first, as far as business-wise, how we've been, this April, just like everybody else, our April has been on par with our April 2019. Actually, probably even it's been at least on par, if not better, because pretty much two of the main KPIs or two of the main metrics that I track are, you know, organic partners that we onboard, and partners could be a home stage or a realtor that come to us organically. Either they were referred to us by a real estate agent we currently do business with, or by a home stager we currently do business with. So not anything that came off of, you know, Google or Facebook, but, you know, came in organically. So I have a certain quota that I like to hit every month, and we met that for April. Another metric I like to track is opportunities, of course, you know, prospects, opportunities that are organic, you know, that are new, that are organic. And these could not necessarily folks who may call and say, hey, you know, you're referred to us, we want to do business with you. Is where we actually have to physically go out and do a service estimate. So I like to have a certain number of those in those opportunities. And we've been on par for, you know, in 2020 at you know, the same way that we were in 2019. If I were to contribute it or attribute it to anything, what comes to mind is a statement that I heard from a gentleman named Clayton Mass. Clayton Mass is one of the founders of a software automation platform called Infusionsoft. Used to be called Infusionsoft, now it's called Key. And apologize for that. And he made a statement. He said that when times are good, is in good times, those are prime opportunities to strengthen the relationships that you have with your customers. So with us, or with me, prior to the pandemic, we've always been about hands-on with our realtors, our stagers, keeping them in the loop, really good as far as communication, letting them know, okay, your client called today. That we went out there, we gave them a quote. So we've always had a good rapport with our stagers and our realtors pre-pandemic. So I think that kind of really worked to our favor. Once things kind of slowed down, it wasn't like we were hastily trying to say, hey, we're still here, we need business. It was just business as usual. So I think that actually is what pretty much attributed to us. So that has to do with the data as far as our business wise. And again, we're in the home services sector. So if you were to kind of create a picture of what our company is and what we do, we're a textile or fabric cleaning and restoration company. So you want to think like Zero Res, Stanley Steamer. We clean couches, we clean Oriental rugs, we clean silk rugs, we clean fine upholstery, things of that nature for the B2C market, for the consumer market. And about over a decade ago, I started to get a lot of calls from stagers and realtors asking us, say, hey, I see you guys clean carpets. Do you also stretch carpets? I'm listening to putting the house on the market and it has these buckles in them. Can you guys do anything about that? And of course, we could. I'm a certified carpet reinstallation technician. So when you're listing a home, you may walk into a home, and unfortunately, if the homeowner or the seller had a bad install when the carpets were installed, even if there's not a lot of traffic in the home, once that carpet starts to acclimate, it goes through the temperature changes, just a little bit of foot traffic. It could be empty nesters. The carpet may start to buckle. And then when it's time to sell their home, they're looking at a couple grand, because you can't take pictures, you can't stage it properly, you can't market it with all those ripples and buckles in the carpet. Now, the carpet may be flawless as far as spots and stains, but it has all these waves. So they call us in there, and we go in there for a fraction of the cost. And this is pretty much our value proposition. Our value proposition is we want to provide solutions that save your clients money. So that was pretty much our value proposition to the market, to realtors and stagers, to say, hey, if you have a seller who's selling a home and the carpet's in relatively good shape, but it has these buckles in there, you pretty much, it's a trip hazard, two, it doesn't look well, you can't take pictures, you can't market it properly, give us a call, because something has to be done, right? Something has to be done, because it kind of looks as if, you aren't really doing, your best to kind of, to market a home if you don't take care of it. So our thing is, why haven't spent a couple grand for a fraction of the cost? We can come in there and achieve the same outcome. That's the first main problem or solution that we provide for sellers or the clients of listing agents. The second one is, funny thing is, I had a client call it wall dirt, and that was the first time I've heard anybody refer to it as wall dirt in 20 years. But we in the industry call it black filtration soil lines, and it's those black lines along the edges of the wall on the carpets next to the baseboards. And again, we would get these calls and say, hey, Chris, hey, Fresh Start, I hear you guys clean carpet, but the carpets looks good, but like there's these mystery black lines all over the place, and buyers may think it's mold, and we can't show the house like that. The carpet looks great other than that. And again, the same frame of reference. Something has to be done. Why have to spend a couple grand to have brand new carpets in the home they aren't even going to benefit from? And they're like, well, we tried all the big companies, and nobody has a solution or process for it, but we do. Reason why, and it's not a hack. The reason why, I'm what's known as a master textile cleaner, meaning when I got into this industry, I really geeked out on it. I went up to Dalton and got training on, the carpets, the fibers, the different types of soil. So these are things that can be learned, but because our industry isn't regulated, to each his own. A lot of guys don't do, or a lot of guys and gals don't kind of take the initiative to learn about, okay, what is that soil? How can it come out? Because you can't remove it with regular cleaning. Those black lines, it's carbon-based, it's insoluble, and it has a charge that's opposite to the charge of the nylon polymers that the carpet is made out of. So it actually bonds to it. So you can't break it down with some type of detergent. You can't clean it up. And that's why they said everybody's tried it, can't get it out. But there is a process. There is a protocol for it. We know it. It's not rocket science. Again, it's just requires training. And told them, yeah, we could definitely take care of it. And that was one of our most popular services is, get calls. Yeah, they have those black lines along the edges, otherwise the carpet looks good. And again, we get in there for a fraction of the cost as someone selling their home, and we achieve the same outcome. And the other three, and that's the second one. The other three are pretty, rapid. The third one is just dirty grout. Many times homeowners, it could be in a mud room, a laundry room, a kitchen, they have a problem, keeping the grout clean. Well, that's just because of how it's constructed. It's kind of like a valley, it's a dip. So as much as you try to sweep and get all the soil out, it's going to settle into those grout channels, dry there, and there's no way to kind of evacuate it out. So we can get in there and restore the grout, as opposed to them, spending, again, a lot more money to have the whole thing regrouted. We can get in there and do what's called a grout restoration and really get those grout channels looking good. Of course, carpet. They give us a call to say, hey, Chris, the carpet looks really bad. My seller's on kind of a little tight budget. They're having to spend money for this, and this. We were wondering, can this carpet be saved? Hear that several times a week. Can this carpet be saved? We'll go out there free of charge, no cost, free of charge to give them an honest, assessment whether or not we feel as if we can save whether or not we feel as if we can restore the carpet's form. We also offer 100 square feet free of charge. So if there's a question, we'll go out there, again, free of charge. We'll do the worst area. It could be a staircase, a hallway, a living room, to kind of give the stager and the realtor a good idea of what the rest of the house is going to look like, so they can determine, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do the whole house. We can merchandise this property. We can market it, if this is going to be the outcome that everything else is going to look like, or, well, you know what, this kind of looks like they probably need to go ahead and get new carpets because the carpet's dated, this, that, and the other. Something that we do that kind of really sets us a little bit apart is that we take on all the risk. So if we take on a project, especially for a seller, our guarantee is if the outcome doesn't meet we have three clients when we're working on listings. We have the homeowner, the seller, we have the home stager, and we have the realtor. So our guarantee is if that outcome doesn't meet the satisfaction of all three parties involved, 100% money back guarantee. So that way people know that we aren't just going out there just to get a transaction. We're going out there, and if we look at a carpet and we're like, yeah, we can restore this carpet. If they pay us to restore this carpet, we can restore this carpet for a fraction of the cost of replacing, and all three parties are gonna love it, are gonna be happy with it. And if we fail to meet that qualification for all three of those parties, 100% will refund the money's done. So that kind of keeps us in check too. So when we go out there and we actually bid on a project, we know we're taking on the risk. So the buckles, the black lines along the edges, the grout, the carpet restoration, those are the services. And the fifth thing is just all those services we offer them for high-rise clients. So it's very hard to find a company to service the Buckhead, Midtown, high-rise apartment market. But we service those. I had one this past week. I think it was at Metropolis. For the larger companies here in the city, it's a logistical nightmare. You have to deal with the concierge. You have to get a fab key. You have to go to the loading dock. You have to get this. But we're a small boutique operation, and we have experience doing it. So we kind of get all our ducks in a row beforehand. So when we go out there, we execute. So we just about adding value to the market to say, hey, if any of your clients need any of these services and they're not in a residential home, we also offer it, in the high-rise apartment market. So I could go a little further, but I'll pause right there because it feels like I've taken up quite a bit of time.
See, I muted myself again. No, thank you. We appreciate the details. And then one other question I had, and I don't know, regarding the other aspect of your business, or as far as the handyman aspect, is that part of something that you do as well?
Yeah, and I kind of have to preface that to say, because I know, sometimes, folks would be like, oh my goodness, these guys are trying to do everything. We're not. Actually, we're not trying to be the jack of all trades. Those 5 services I listed, those are what we do internally. We're a carpet, a textile fabric cleaning company. We restore anything, carpets, rugs, floors, towels, and whatever. For the handyman thing, what we did, and that was for this other project called My Listing Help. Again, at the foundation of this is just about adding value to our partners. And it's mylistinghelp.com, because oftentimes whenever a realtor stager will call us, we'll do something for them, we'll get the calls. Hey, Chris, do you know a guy? Do you know somebody? Do you know a company? Do you know this? And yeah, I had a handful of folks that I was very comfortable referring. They worked extensively in the real estate market with realtors, and they're mindful of what it's like to work in this market. Things such as, like, we offer seven days service for realtors and stagers. We may get a text from a realtor on Saturday saying, hey, I'm trying to put this house in the market by Monday. And I'll say, is it a lockbox? Is it a garage door code? We'll go out there on Sunday. So we partner with other companies that, like David Wise, a lot of folks here. I met him at IHOPS, which is the staging association, and RISA. He works with real estate stagers extensively. He's many jobs ATL. I think he's been doing it for about 35 years. And that's what he does. So I said, hey, David, I get these calls, but I want to create this portal, which is called mylistinghelp.com. And I just, My Listing Help. So a seller can go there, a realtor can go there, a stager can go there. And not only will it have our services that we do here at Fresh Start, but it'll also have also have like the handyman services in detail, what David does. Elwood Hemmings, he does the pressure washing from indoor outdoor. My buddy Wilmer, he does all types of flooring installations. So if they need LVT or LCT, whatever that hip floor is, then folks like, I apologize. Carpets, towel, he does the installation. So it's about partnering with other home service providers to, again, be that one place that either a seller or realtor or stager can go to. We get no money from it. We don't mark up the prices. It's kind of just like being a concierge, and as you mentioned before, kind of being that one place you can go to, you fill out the form, you'll be dealing with me. I'm really big on communication. Anybody who's worked with me knows I'm texting, emailing, I keep folks in the loop. And I feel realtors like that. They want to be kept in the loop. If a date moves, or in which it won't, we won't reschedule anything, but it like to be, because there's so many moving pieces. You have the maids coming here, you have the pictures coming here, you have the inspector coming here. You need to have that data from us. So, and I understand, I know it's important. So it's just about having that one place. And again, the My Listing Help functions as like a concierge for all the pre-listing home services solutions. And last but not least, we also kind of started offering some COVID-19 precautionary services, but I won't get into that right now because I've taken up too much time.
Oh, no.
We also have some
really
COVID-19 precautionary services.
That's great. Great to know.
Okay.
We appreciate that. And that's something that maybe if anybody has a question about it, we'll certainly ask. And I'm sure it's something you can also email to us and we can share with our clients, because clearly that's a concern right now. And I'm sure there are people we know that would have questions about that. But before we talk more about that, if we do, we can just reach out to anybody else on the call. I know Michael had to get off, but I know Emily is still here. So Emily, if you have any questions, or if anybody else on the call has any questions for any of us, this is a great time to throw them out here. You can unmute yourself. There you are. Or you can show yourself, or you can whatever you're comfortable. And there's someone else behind you.
Yeah, that's my fiance, Adrienne.
Oh, hey, Adrienne. I think
Yeah,
sorry, but I haven't met you.
Yeah, we're friends with Robby, so we've got one of the two of you covered.
Okay.
No, it's been so great to listen in and hear all the things that y'all have to say. We are just, I would say, like tenderly dipping our toes.
Infancy.
Yeah, into the idea of buying a home. So we've talked to Robby kind of like on a really broad level of how does one even do something like this? People do this all the time, and how do you get started? So really, we've just been listening in from an educational perspective and trying to figure out what information do we need to start collecting for ourselves to get ready for this. The ironic thing is that I work in advertising, and my last client was Home Depot, and I specifically worked on first-time homeowners as an audience group. So you would think that I should know a lot more about this, but I only know about home improvement projects, unfortunately, and not the actual logistics of buying a house.
That's great stuff to know.
That's valuable information.
I like that. Yeah, that's good information.
It's going to come in handy, I think, at some point.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I saw you had a question for Jonathan regarding loans. Did you have anything else about that, or any questions at all you want to ask any of us?
I don't know about anything directly. We were shocked by the what was like the figure 3.125. That was just like, oh my God, that's wild. It's wild to think about that. And so one thing that we are kind of taking back with us is looking at personal finances and trying to figure out what we need to know, what do we not know right now that we need to know, or at least become educated enough to ask the right questions so that we can start working with you folks to figure out what's the best course of action for us in the home buying process. But I don't think I have any more specific questions. I'm sure I will come up with some, and I will, harass Robby or you all with them.
Yes, harass anytime.
Yeah, please do harass him.
Yeah. And harass Jonathan too.
It's a promise and a threat.
Yeah. Harass us all. We're all worth harassing. But, I know Jonathan did answer your question. That is sometimes honestly a thought that people have when they've never purchased a home. They immediately, and something maybe some of our parents have like put in our mind, you've got to put 20% down, 20% down. It's like the only option, and it's really just antiquated big time, because you don't put 20% down. There's so many options, and I know he mentioned one, but when you talk one-on-one with him, or you actually apply for a mortgage, he could get into real details with you about your situation, because everybody's unique,
Sure.
And it's a great first step. But of course, you can ask Robby any questions as well. It's just with the finances, Jonathan's the master of mortgages, so he can answer.
And one thing we haven't mentioned in this call, which we have in past calls, was the difference between what's going on right now versus what happened in 2008, with the housing market crash. And obviously, as we have said time and time again, that the real estate market's strong, if not stronger than 2019, which was a great year. But in 2008, obviously what happened was, very different. It was an economic issue versus a public health issue. And, back in 2008, there was really when the housing market crashed, there was really no end in sight. And with what we're going through right now with COVID-19, it's, we're already seeing that we're hopefully past the hump, and now we're on the downside of it. And the real estate market hasn't really flinched. So, we're going to come out of this as strong, if not stronger than before, in my opinion. You really can't, in my opinion, compare the two periods of time and say that they're very similar, because they're not in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, I would argue too, they're two totally different realities too. You look at what the world was like in 2008 from a non-financial perspective, and you look at what it's like in 2020, the ways that we communicate with one another too. The access to information that we have is completely different. It's you're dealing with really very different worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. If we didn't have any of this in 2008, and just so you know, Emily, I was in the business end, and so was Jonathan. So we lived through that, so we can really speak to the differences personally and professionally. And there's no similarities at all in the negative aspect of it, So thank God for technology and the things that we do now. And like all of us have mentioned, real estate continues to be essential, and we've just been, working with the new norm, and we've been working really well with it. And honestly, the Zoom call is a perfect example of, I love that we've been doing this, and we may do this forever now, regardless, because it's fun, and it's an easy way to bring people together. And you don't have to leave your house, and I hope you have your cocktail, and so it's good things that are coming out of this as well, as far as the communication and what we're learning and sharing with you guys every week. So any other thoughts or questions from anybody on the panel? You want to talk about anything else offhand, or anything interesting to share that we didn't touch on?
I don't think so.
Not really?
This week.
Yeah, like what's happened this week? That's the good news, is that nothing too scary happened. I love Jonathan's update of that 3.1 rate. It's got me all, riled up and excited. I know that was today's rate, but I'm curious your opinion on, will that be tomorrow? What do you see happening with that this week, next week? Or I know you can't predict, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, the rate has been fluctuating anywhere. Like I said, the lowest that I've seen it was 3%, and that lasted about 2 hours. But it's been fluctuating from about 3.2 1.25 to about 3.5%, but I would say the average is probably about 3.25, 3 3/8. That, Lauren could probably chime in on that too, because she sees, as she's closing these loans, what rates are, and I'm sure she's, paying attention to that as well and saying, wow, it's pretty crazy how low they are right now.
It really is.
Oh, you're on mute.
Muted. You have to unmute. Okay.
Mute now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have dogs, and I'm paranoid that they're going to chime in as well. But we're seeing probably an average between 3.25 and 3.5, with obviously credit score being the predominant variation there between the two. And every time I look, you say at a closing, like, oh, and so you've got a great rate, and then you look down and you think, no, you really have a wonderful rate.
You have no idea how good of a rate you have. Yeah.
It's why I know. Yeah. Now I'm literally going to sound like my parents, probably my grandparents. Like the first house I bought, I swear to God, my interest rate was in the 7s, and it was at the time a great rate. Nobody was like, oh, it's 2%, but it was in the 7s, and it was like, oh, you're getting a good rate. That was in 2001-ish. So, I mean, it's wild to think about. Like, again, you probably heard all your parents say, like, oh, in the 80s, it was like 10%, 15. It's wild. Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But now it's so, from 7 to 3 is just, it's not even.
It's insane. I mean, I was digging deep into this topic earlier this week or yesterday or 2 days ago, I don't know. And I was so engrossed that I had to make a little video about it.
Yeah.
And you guys might get an email from me this week with this little video that I made, because I mean, I was looking at like the history of interest rates for 30-year loans, and just the spectrum is astounding. I mean, when you think about, we had a high in 1981 of 18.63%.
Insane.
I mean, it makes my hands sweaty, and I'm just like, if you could go buy a house now for anything under 4% it's miraculous. So there's nowhere to go but up from here. Is the thing.
Yeah, to that point, Robby did a great video that we've already shared on some of our social media, and I think we're going to send an email to everyone, but it's literally why this is such a great time to buy. And there's many factors, but that's a huge one, because ultimately, financially, you have to be able to qualify and afford it. But then there's all these other positive factors, and he talks to that as well. So it's a great little video he did. He's becoming a video star. So
I am really
have
Yeah.
the content strategy down.
I thought I was like the actor and the
I'm like the Mary Catherine Gallagher kind of actor. I really don't want to do it, and then I get really into it, like maybe too into it.
Yeah.
Hey, Robby, I've got a quick question. Earlier you mentioned, as far as days on the market, 18 days on the market. How does that number compare year over year to 2019 for April?
I don't know how it compares to 2019. I think it's probably pretty close. I can compare it to 2018 because I know 2 years ago it was like everything was like 4 and 7 days on the market. It was wildfire. It was so crazy. And then it started to chill out a little bit because everybody realized Amazon wasn't coming or whatever, and it started to calm down a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
The values haven't dipped. But days on the market stretched out a little bit. But when you consider how low a week is on the market, now if it's 2 weeks, I mean, it's nothing. So there's always outliers. When I'm going through these numbers, and what I've been doing in the morning on Wednesdays, the first thing before I get all distracted, as I start running all these reports and like pilfering through them and extracting all this info. And so you do see like the outliers, like anything that's in the luxury market is going to be on the market a little longer. If it's $1 million or $1.5 million, it's not selling in 14 days, sorry. But overall, you're looking at like what's going on in general. And it's like, here is the general price, the average price, and here's how long it is on the market. and that people are getting almost asking price and have been
Nice.
for 2 or 3 years now.
Nice.
So it hasn't really changed that much. Honestly, the one thing that may have changed a little bit is the number of closings, like the number of transactions is maybe a little bit slower right now than what we would expect. But that's kind of, I don't know, again, that's speaking to the market and not even necessarily, well, 2 things. One, first of all, Katie and I had our best month in December last year. We had like 1 million closings in December.
Nice.
So you just never know. But also, I think it's interesting just from a this is so personal and specific, but I have a lot of people in the pipeline right now. Almost an alarming amount of buyers in the pipeline. And I'm like, y'all do this, or else you're all going to be fighting over the same house. And I promise you that's what's going to happen in summer and the fall, and into spring times 1.5. It'll be nuts. That's just, you know, that's very specific, but.
Another reason why someone like Emily and the people that we are talking to now that you're going out with this weekend, tomorrow, they have the advantage, you know what I mean? Like they're being smart and they're willing and able and healthy, and you know, we're doing everything very safely. If you're able to do this now, you're at an advantage where you don't have that competition necessarily breathing on your neck as much. So you can go and safely look at a property and decide, yes, this is a house I want. I can make an offer and I can buy it. And maybe there won't be 10 other people behind you, literally, you know, because those people aren't being as proactive and, you know, aren't feeling comfortable or are not taking the steps to get ready anyway. They may be waiting too long to get ready to do this, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like
I care about my clients. So I'm like, let them wait. They can wait forever. Like my clients, I'm like, let's do this now so we don't have to beat everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say one other thing just real quick on that topic is also too, being a first-time home buyer does have advantages because you don't own anything, so you don't have to sell anything.
Oh, it's brilliant.
You know, so you don't have any contingencies to add into the contract.
That's a good point.
Yeah, to Robby's pipeline statement, I'm not sure if it was on today's show or last week's show, last week's replay that I listened to. I don't know if it was Robby or Johnson said that the spring season is actually about to come upon us right now.
It's just going to move 2 months, right? Or whatever. It's like
summer,
it's going to be bananas. Like, it's going to be intense or whatever. It's just going to be that thing. It's good. You know, honestly, I'm like, we're about to have 2018 again, but just a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what we're feeling. So, you know, we're feeling, this is again, the whole point of doing this weekly and communicating with everybody constantly, even be in between the weekend calls. We're always monitoring and watching and reacting and sharing our, you know, knowledge and experience with you. So we really appreciate you all being on the call, and we hope you'll continue to, you know, join us as a person joining or as another guest. And we'd love for you to share this with anybody you know. And we're recording all these calls, so we are sharing them out, you know, in email with people if they want to watch the whole thing, but we're doing clips. Our assistant goes through and picks kind of the best clips for us to share. And then when we get this Facebook Live thing working, we will be on Facebook Live, but the nice thing is that because it's recorded, we can replay it actually on Facebook and even do like a watch party for you guys. So, you know, again, we'd love for you to continue to join us and share it, but we're always available via Zoom or Facebook or old-fashioned phone or email, whatever you want. But we're coming up on 6:30, so unless anybody else has any other questions, I just want to say thank you all for coming, and we appreciate you.